typically is how most bodies will do it. The chair will be the last to speak, and will listen to it. Common courtesy will dictate that. That's not a rule, though. The chair is not constrained at all. The chair can lead the discussion. The chair can speak first. It's just that's more of a tradition than anything. Presiding officer, the chair can also make a motion and second a motion. There's no reason why that shouldn't occur. Conflicts of interest. Oh, let me stop now that we're shifting gears. Does anyone have any questions about either the Brown Act or parliamentary procedure at this point? Yes?
I have a question. If the committee votes on something, a motion, and it passes, and it's supposed to come back to the committee, if it doesn't come back, what happens then?
If it doesn't come back, well, it depends on what the issue is that's being brought back. If you've given direction to staff to bring something back and it has not come back, then that should be brought up with either the staff liaison to the committee or to the city manager in the case of the city council. Staff does tracking on these types of things. At least at the council level, we've got an advanced calendar, so we know generally when things are going to come back. But if it doesn't come back, then there's been a breakdown in communication. Might just suggest, a quick comment to your staff liaison and say, when will this be coming back? Is this coming back? And there may be reasons from a staff workload standpoint why it may not come back as quickly as the committee may want. There may be additional work that needs to be done. We're pretty good at the council level of kind of telegraphing to the council, we don't think that can come back at the next meeting. How about 2 meetings from now? And so there's some give and take on that. Okay, any other questions? All right, let me get into conflicts of interest a little bit. So the sources of law on conflicts of interest, you've got the Political Reform Act, which talks about financial conflicts. You have common law rules, which are probably not going to apply as much to this committee as they do to, say, the Planning Commission or the City Council, but I'll explain it. And then you've got Government Code Section 1090, which is a contract conflict. Next slide, please. The purpose of these conflicts laws are to make sure that the decisions that you're making, whether they're advisory or binding, are based solely on what serves the public interest best. And it's to help contribute to not only the perception, but the reality that the process is fair and legitimate. Keep in mind, if you have a conflict for whatever reason, you haven't done anything wrong. In fact, in a town as small as Solvang, if you don't have a conflict from time to time, it's a little unusual. So don't feel badly if you have one. Don't feel badly if you have to step down from a particular matter. It just means that you shouldn't participate in the decision. So how do we figure out what these financial interests are? Well, the Political Reform Act requires you to fill out a form, Form 700, where you have to disclose your financial interests. That's a public record. Members of the public can take a look at these. They can see what interests you have, what financial interests, or what kind of stock holdings that you have. For example, many years ago, Verizon wanted to do a cell site up on the hill over here, and I had stock in Verizon at that time. I don't do individual stock anymore for the reason, but I did not feel comfortable considering whether or not that lease should go forward, so I had another lawyer consider that to avoid any indication that I was providing legal advice on something where I had a financial interest. Now, with a major corporation like that, it's probably not a true financial conflict, but I did not want to have even the perception of it in that situation. You also have AB 1234 ethics training. If a city provides reimbursement of expenses to its committee members, you have to go through the AB 1234 training. This is not that training. I want to make that clear. I am not the AB 1234 trainer. There are resources available either through Cal Cities or the Institute for Local Self-Government. You can do them online, but those are required. Have to do sexual harassment prevention training, and that's required shortly after you start and every 2 years thereafter. And then you've got to do the Form 700 and provide that to the city clerk's office.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sure. So if someone's done it with the county, we can file them with the city here. The same form.
County,
the front
probably
is just
yes. State, no.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a state employee and you have been through the training, or you are a member of a state agency of some type and you've gone through ethics training, that is not the same. It is not equivalent. We've had that come up, I think, once or twice here, where someone worked for the state and they took ethics training under AB 1234 or under the sexual harassment. The reason it's not sufficient is the laws are different. What is covered in those trainings is very slightly different. And unless the training covers both of those, it's either one or the other. And so if there's a question about the training, it's just easier to ask staff, hey, will this training suffice? And we can take a look at it. In the particular situation where we were asked to take a look into it, the state's training was different. It wasn't the same. And so we had to say, sorry, you went through 2 hours that you should have done with the city's training. So going back to the Political Reform Act, it basically prohibits public officials from making, participating in, or influencing a decision in which they have reason to know they have a material financial interest. That's a lot of words, but basically, if you have a financial interest in something that's coming before you and you're making a decision on it, you should question whether or not you should step down from that. So if you're making decisions to benefit your business or decisions that could benefit your business, ask yourself the hard question, should I be participating in this? That's really what the gut check is on the, and the Political Reform Act is far more complex than I have time to really go into, but if you have questions, if you have a gut feeling of, well, this could be considered a conflict or this could impact my financial interests, reach out for help first. Don't go through, make the decision, and then have the FPPC come and do an enforcement action on you, because they have a quarterly bulletin that they list all the enforcement actions that they've done during that quarter and all the fines that they've collected. And it's $1,000 up to $5,000. And there are dozens of these violations. And so FPPC, I think they're very proud of that enforcement, but it's a trap for the unwary. So if you have questions, you can contact me. I can kind of give you a gut check as to whether or not additional steps need to be taken. I will point out, though, that my advice to you on a conflict issue is not going to insulate you against a charge from the FPPC. What I will help you do is frame the issue for the FPPC. They're the ones that have to make the determination of whether or not you have a conflict and disqualify you from voting. But the practical test that they're going to be using in this situation is it reasonably foreseeable that the decision you're making will have a material financial effect on you, your spouse, your dependent children, or your business that's different than the impact on the public generally. Next slide, please. I mentioned a little bit before, if you think you have conflict, you can get advice from me. You can get advice from your own lawyer. I'll tell you a war story very briefly on that. Had a council member many years ago who hired a private law firm. He spent $25,000 on an advice letter from the law firm that said he could go ahead and vote on a matter. He went ahead and voted on the matter and got fined by the FPPC. So got insult added to injury and had to pay $5,000 for the conflict on that. So private attorney doesn't insulate you. I don't insulate you. The only thing that insulates you from an FPPC enforcement action is formal advice from the FPPC. They do have an informal advice line that you can call on 1-866-ASK-FPPC that will give you informal advice. I would encourage you, though, that that's just, again, a gut check. Only formal advice can insulate you. I had a council member who called for informal advice. FPPC said, yes, go ahead and vote. He went ahead and voted. And FPPC came and said, well, you should have gotten formal advice. Our consultant that day was having a bad day, gave you wrong advice. We're going to fine you only $3,000 instead of $5,000 because you relied on our informal advice. So don't get caught in that. Next slide, please. What the FPP, yes?
Is there a time difference in which you would have for the, I guess I'm trying to figure out why someone would get informal that doesn't hold them to that advice rather than a formal. Is there?
FPPC has about a 21-day turnaround. If something comes up to you before a meeting and you want a gut check, and they say, well, I think you're probably safe, but you should get formal advice, then you ask yourself, should I step down? If they say, absolutely not, you shouldn't vote on this, that makes it very clear that you shouldn't vote. If they say, we can't really tell based on the facts, then you should get formal advice. You should, and I have helped council members and commission members draft the letter to the FPPC because I know what the FPPC is looking for in terms of making their determination on formal advice. What they're going to be looking for is this list right here. Is it reasonably foreseeable that the decision will result in financial effects on your financial interest? Are they material impacts on you? Are there any, are these effects the same as effects on the public in general? And if they're not, are you making, participating, or using your position to influence? So you can step down from a decision, but if you're making phone calls to your fellow committee members on a matter outside the meeting and you're trying to influence the decision, that's just as bad as actually participating in the decision yourself. So it's not just making the decision, it's participating in the making or using your position to influence a particular decision. Next slide, please. I won't get into too much detail on this, but what counts as a financial interest are business entities, real property, sources of income, and donors. Donors are more at the council level than here, but if you have a source of income and you're getting more than $500 from someone and they come and they make a proposal to you here, you should be very cautious about voting on that. Yes, Mayor?
I believe there was just a new bill passed that put that down to $250 contribution to an election would make it so that you should not, you have to get away.
Yeah, so that's campaign contributions as opposed to sources of income.
Okay.
So the campaign contributions are going to a candidate. Sources of income are, say for example, you have a side business where you're doing photography and you got $500 for doing someone's wedding, for example, and they come to you and they want to put on another event here. They're a source of income to you, and that's where you have to be cautious about it.
Thank you.
If I could interrupt for a moment, if we could all speak loudly, this is the only set of microphones, and the minute clerk has a very difficult time picking up conversations that happen unless you're projecting. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, so the reasonably foreseeable material effect is here on the slide. The regulations, I don't even bother trying to remember the regulations. I go back to them every single time a question comes up because they change them constantly and I have to keep up on it. So I go back to the regulations. There are real property rules if you're within 500 feet. This is more applicable to the council and to the planning commission than it is here, but there are real property radii or radiuses where you have to take a look, and it's presumed that you have a conflict if you have property within a particular distance of another property that is being considered. Again, not as common for something like that to come up at the TAC. Next slide, please. How do you address a conflict at a meeting? Well, if you have a conflict, say you have a conflict. Next slide, I'm sorry. There we go. When it's called on the agenda, if you have a conflict, go ahead and mention that before the staff presentation. Identify what the type of conflict is, whether it's a source of income, real property conflict, and then you leave the room. You have to stay outside the room and not try to influence the decision at that point. The exception is if you have a conflict on something on the consent calendar, you can declare the conflict and say, I have a conflict on item 4C, I will not be voting on that item. You do not have to leave the room on a consent item. There are also exceptions to the leaving the rule item. You can speak in certain circumstances under the First Amendment on items concerning your personal interests. I won't get into that a lot because that requires guidance if you're going to do that. And I generally advise against it because it's very, very difficult to tread the line between what is a conflict of interest under the Political Reform Act and what the First Amendment is. You shouldn't try to make that decision without some legal guidance. Next slide, please. Consequences of the violation, we talked about it a little bit more. They can go up to $5,000 in civil penalties. Action can be rescinded. That's probably the bigger one. And if an action is rescinded through a lawsuit, they will certainly be asking for attorney's fees on that. So other conflict of interest issues, common law conflicts of interest. I call these the pit of the stomach or the gut feeling. I don't feel comfortable voting on this because of X, Y, Z. If you have a personal relationship with someone, it may not necessarily be an actual conflict, but if your brother-in-law, who you haven't seen in 5 years, comes and puts a proposal before you and you're not comfortable one way or another, even if it's not a true conflict of interest, you can step down in that situation. No one will think badly of you in that, but it's not a Political Reform Act type of conflict. I had a situation where a mayor was saying, well, why can't my brother-in-law provide fencing services for the city? I'm perfectly good, he does a great job, I think we should vote on that. And I said, well, Mayor, if your brother-in-law lives with you, that's a bit difficult to make that call. So it's one of those things where maybe it wasn't a technical conflict of interest, but it sure looked bad. Government Code Section 1090, this probably will never come up for the TAC, but you shouldn't be making or participating in the making of a contract with the city that you have a reason to believe that you've got a financial interest. So if you're signing a contract with the city that you've worked on as a member of the TAC, that's a big problem. And I've seen lots of prosecutions for that. It happens fairly frequently down in Los Angeles County, believe it or not. Gifts, I'll go into this a little bit. Be careful who you get gifts from because you're a public official now. The perception is if you receive big gifts from someone, they're trying to influence you. It may not be the Christmas presents that you think of. It could be, oh, I'll pick up the tab at lunch. And you've gone out to a really nice lunch. It's kind of a common thing that's known with me that when I go out to lunch with people, I always pick up the tab because I never want to have to worry about whether or not someone has gifted me the cost of the meal. There are situations where I will trade off meals, where I'll go back and forth with someone, but you have to be very careful when you're a public official. Even if it's not someone that is coming before you in your capacity as a TAC member, those gifts still count. I had a private client years ago that for their holiday party, they flew all their employees to Las Vegas, put them up in a hotel for the weekend. They said, we consider you part of our staff, Dave. We'd like to take you and fly you and your spouse to Las Vegas with us. And I said, I can't do that. I'm a city attorney. That's more than the gift limit. Gift limit's $590 now. Back then it was about $300. I did get formal advice from FPPC in that situation. They said, your wife can go, but you can't. And so we didn't do that. Next slide, please. Okay, Public Records Act, we're coming in for a landing here. Thank you for your attention. Public Records Act is kind of an outgrowth of the open meeting concept of the Brown Act. Public Records Act basically is the government code provides that members of the public in most instances have a right to ask for and receive or inspect public records. There are lots and lots of exceptions, but any person, including a corporation, has a right to be provided a copy of an identifiable public record. Government code section is there for your reference, but it's an identifiable public record. And so where it becomes a problem from staff is if someone says, I want each and every document of the following. That's something that litigators will ask for in litigation. That's not a Public Records Act request. A Public Records Act request is, I would like the city's budget. I would like the agenda packet from March 12th. But when we get into a situation where we receive Public Records Act requests where I want every document of a particular character, there will be pushback. And the city will say, we need a little bit more definition on that. We can provide you the record. Here's how we maintain our records. We'll provide you assistance in focusing your request so that you can get what you want. But if someone makes a request for, I want every piece of correspondence that went out from the city between March 2nd and March 5th, we're going to say no to that. We're going to say, which one are you looking for? We'll provide that to you, but we're not going to go and look for every single record and try to determine whether or not it's responsive or not, because that's an obligation in litigation. That's not an obligation under the Public Records Act. We will try to work with you to clarify those requests. So, next, thank you. So the exception, well, I guess we should go back to the last one. Sorry about that. Public record is any writing containing information pertaining to the conduct of the public's business. A writing is very broadly defined now. In the old days, it used to be a piece of paper. It was very easy. But now we have all sorts of different things that we have to look at. We have to look at text messages. We have to look at emails. We have to look at oh gosh, what are some other examples that we have that are beyond that? Facebook postings, Snapchat, Instagram. There's all sorts of methods of communication that didn't exist when I first went to law school. And we're having to deal with this with laws that are behind the times. And so we've had to figure out along the way, and the legislature's had to give us directions. Okay, are these public records? So if The city of San Jose, they found out that council members were text messaging outside of a council meeting between themselves and members of the public. And that's communications that is pertaining to city business. And so someone made a Public Records Act request for that. And the council member said, well, no, that's my personal phone, it's my personal communication, I'm not turning that over. And the court said, but it's pertaining to the public's business, even if it's on a private device, that's the public's business. So they came up with this concept of having a declaration or an affidavit. So if you get a request from the city clerk, hey, we're gonna need you to search your personal devices for the following. You may be asked to sign an affidavit saying, I have done this search, I have come up with the following records, or I have no such records. That's something we never had to contend with, but I've seen all sorts of different methods of communication that fall within the Public Records Act that I never would have conceived of when the Public Records Act first was created. So keep that in mind. If you're communicating with people outside the meeting by text message, you may have to turn that over at some point. Next one, or next slide, please. Exceptions, there's a whole bunch of exceptions. I'm not going to go into them other than very broadly. Personnel records, medical records, records relating to attorney-client communications between me and the city council or staff, those can be exemptions. There's also a catch-all exemption that the interest of the public in having a particular record is outweighed by the agency's need to keep it confidential. There's a whole list of what the exemptions are and the type of records that are subject. But if the city releases one of those records, for example, if they release one of my memos to the city council because the city council has said release that, then that exception goes away and it's a public record at that point. Next slide. Consequences, you've got litigation, obviously, that carries with it the possibility that attorney's fees will be awarded, and then the prevailing plaintiff also gets cost of litigation on that. And that's all I have for you. I'm sorry? Oh, retention, yes, the city clerk asked me to discuss retention in terms of the records. The general rule for retention is 2 years. Government Code Section 34090 requires retention of most public records for a minimum of 2 years. That's emails, that's text messages, that's public records. There are lots of exceptions to that as well. There are records retention requirements that exceed the 2 years. Real property records at the county, they have to be maintained indefinitely. There are some things that are of a more transitory nature, drafts. You know, if you have a draft, sometimes that'll get thrown into the garbage can. Technically, there's an argument between city attorneys as to whether or not that needs to be retained, but it's the same argument as to whether junk mail that comes into City Hall has to be maintained for 2 years. If you read technically, the government code requires retention of it, but there's going to be a rule of reason applied to it. But keep in mind that if you have records that are relating to the public's business, you shouldn't be throwing them away at the end of the day. You should ask yourself, is this a record that is subject to a retention policy? The city clerk can provide further guidance on it, and if necessary, I can chime in on it. Anything else on that one that you wanted me to cover? Okay. With that, my presentation is complete. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you for your attention. I plan on staying for the rest of the meeting since I'm here, and there are some other issues on the agenda, so if other questions come up, I'll be available for those as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, at this point, I don't know if the video is on. I disconnected a portion of it to do the presentation. If I could go ahead and connect that, I don't know if that's going to be, okay. So I could get the HDMI, so I took the HDMI and plugged it straight in. Just need to put it back in the box. This one here.
Y'all are going off my email. Y'all are going off my email.
Dave, while that's being done, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
I know the city is trying to move to paperless, but we also can't use electronic devices in here. So,
You can't use electronic devices?
no.
Okay.
So how are we supposed to?
Why can't you use electronic devices?
Because an email was sent to us by our clerk here that said we could not bring electronic devices.
I think,
No, I did not say not to bring, I said for your phones, that all activity occurring during the meeting, if you're on your phones or Googling or searching, that the public has the impression that you're discussing city matters or disengaged, and it would probably be a good idea not to have those present. But I would say with Dave that if you're looking at the agenda and you have your laptop there, that it's evident that it's about the meeting.
Okay.
But you're not forbidden to bring your electronics.
Yeah, I think we all thought,
yeah, and if you're more comfortable reading your agenda on an iPad, the trees will thank you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay. Are we good to go? All right, so we will move on to the next discussion item, and it is 4B, discussion to review the TOT numbers.
So at last TAC meeting, I know I was asked to bring the TOT numbers. So this is what we have available. I know I was also asked if it could be broken down by day of the week. But we only get monthly reportings from the hotels. So that's as far as we can kind of break it down.
So would I open up for comment from the general, or is it comment amongst the members?
If you have any questions of staff, that would be appropriate at this point. Discussion would come after the public's opportunity to speak on, but you have the opportunity to ask questions of staff.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I thought there's just no way that we can do that with Shelby's group at all, because this says right here that we were received, it says City of Solvang on these numbers.
Right, I'm sorry. I don't understand the question.
Okay, so this one says City of Solvang on the TOT numbers that we
Correct.
received. So
Yep.
this is the City of Solvang
That
only.
is this, correct, yes. I had reached out to Shelby as well to see what numbers he could provide, just to give you guys more information if you wanted it. So that's why I added the San Ynez TOT and occupancy as well.
But this one is only
Correct.
for here.
Yes,
And that's what we want, right?
correct.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess when I'm looking at this, I guess the question is, we, on 22-23, we're 43% down from what you're seeing?
But that's actually taking in for the full fiscal year. So that is, so budgeted, it's the expected, anticipated TOT for this fiscal year. And that's why it says 43, because we're only halfway through.
Okay.
Can we just confirm that it's the City of Solvang, because Shelby sent me his numbers and they were similar.
This is the one from San Ynez. This is San Ynez Valley.
Oh, is my screen up? No.
No.
No, for this one?
It's a pretty little one that you guys sent that looks like.
Okay.
Can you make it look big?
Um,
No?
Okay.
You can?
Thank you.
No, you guys have bad eyesight, it's just,
Can't even read on
I was gonna say.
a tablet.
I mean, there would be similar because their numbers are Solvang plus Buellton, Los Olivos, the other cities.
The entire valley.
Yeah, exactly, the entire
And
valley.
ours is just for the city limits of Solvang.
So our
Which we're
numbers
supposed
are
to be
included
concerned
there.
about, right?
Pardon me?
We're supposed to be concerned with
Concerned about
That's what
Solvang,
we're
the city.
concerned about, the city limits
Okay.
of Solvang.
All right.
So I can't see that. What is, for, like, ending in 2022,
Yeah.
what was our total bed tax? Was it up or down?
So fiscal year 2021-22 was 6,027,219. And that was up 47% from the previous year. Obviously, we had ups and downs with COVID, so yeah.
And don't forget too, that we've had really a great increase in hotel rates.
Yes.
Amazing what they're getting for hotel rates today.
There's definitely a spike in hotel rates.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
So when we ask for this in the future, can you add 2019 to make that, because we tell people in the business world, that's kind of your standard is 2019 right now, because we all know 2020, 2021, and
Right.
2022, this community had some of their best years, and we will probably never see that again. So can we use 2019 always when we're showing data as the as the, kind of the baseline for the community?
So, okay, so you're asking me to bring back just the calendar year of 2019?
I think to have 2019 too, because you're seeing here, and you're looking at it, and you see nothing but growth.
Right.
And I think people need to know really we'll never see anything from we just won't, we're not going to, from 2021. We'll just never see, even though the rate is higher, it's just the fact of seeing that number, and that gives a good baseline, I think, for the community.
Anybody else
You can keep
discuss
that.
this?
I made
Do you
two.
want to say something, Kim?
Yeah, I'm just like, why do we have to, things are trending every year to year.
Right.
So why do we have to stick to one number? I think it's gonna trend each 3 years, each 4 years. We may never have what we had before with the COVID. So why do we have to, because that was a great year. We're gonna have a bad year because we had record storms in the month of January and February going forward. So everything changes, so you do a mean average of those things and just move forward. That's what we normally do with our records when we're doing our businesses. Why
I
do we
know,
have to-
but I
Why
think-
do we have to stick, I'm just saying, why do we have to stick to 1 year? That's all.
I don't think sticking to the year, I think having the years in there is always having that, but I think it just tells you 2019 was really a year that was a very standard year before things changed in this community, COVID-wise, and Open Street, that things were like that. So I'm not saying just to not have that, but that will never be the same, and we were a very unusual community.
All right, let's see that.
One of the things I wanted to, and this is just my data analysis background. So for the 22-23 year, we're at 3,400,000 odd, right? Which is numbers wise equivalent to 2019 and the years before, but it also is not taking into account that the dollar's worth less, so inflation. And so at an average of 10%, that number, even of 3,419, you need to put the dollar back to the equivalent of years past because it has less power today. So if you look at the numbers, raw data, it looks like, okay, this is 3,419, which is in comparison to 2019 or to the other years, but it's not because it's less money, if that makes any sense. So 3,400,000 in 2019 is like 3 million or 2,900,000 today. Does that make any sense?
What, are you asking for a CPI or something?
No, what I'm saying is when we're looking at data to know how we're spending the marketing dollars and what we're getting in return and whether or not it's had an effect on the TOT rates, we need to look at data that's giving us a clear picture. And so if the data makes it look a certain way but it's not accurate because it hasn't taken into account the fact that the dollars are worth different amounts on different years, we're not having an actual representative picture. That's my point. So typically in a chart like this, at least on a financial side, you would take into account what the inflation is, how the dollar has decreased in value, and then you would have a comparison of raw data, but then actual data as far as this is what it means. In dollars today, this is equivalent to what it was however many years ago, and then you do an analysis. So right now, even as it stands, it's a 43% decrease, but it's even more than 43% because the dollar is worth less today. Am I confusing you?
No, I mean, it makes sense, but I mean, you're wanting to take inflation into,
Correct.
Consideration.
yeah.
Correct, because that's how we're going to get a really accurate picture of where we stand. And the whole point of this, if I'm not wrong, is to increase TOT revenue, right? Heads and beds. So we need to know where we are accurately. That's what I'm saying.
But how do you apply it? Every month, every quarter, every year?
No, typically, and there's programs that do this. This happens really quick. So, right, it's real quick. There's financial programs, you don't have to do the calculations yourself. You put in the year, it already brings up, it already knows what it is, what the inflation rate is, it'll do it all for you and spit it out. Literally, probably takes less than an hour. So I'm just saying, we need to have a clear picture, because if we have another marketing company or whoever you choose to do, Cheryl, come in, and we need to be able to authentically see what their improvements are, right? If we don't have a clear picture as far as a jumping off point, then how can we know if we're getting a return on that dollar? How can we know if their marketing efforts are really effective? Because it could look effective, like when the girl said, the woman, she said 1.4 million impressions. It's great. Okay, well, it's great until you look at 900 clicks. And then out of 900 clicks, 600 of those left immediately. So you can make numbers look any kind of way, but you have to dig down deep. So I'm saying, before we get to the next step at looking at hiring a company and having them come in, we need to know what our baseline is. These are our numbers, this is our baseline, everything's equal, so that when they come in and we look at their performance, we are able to measure it accurately. If I'm confusing anyone, just let me know.
I still think you're gonna have to go back to what you asked questions before, about how many clicks. And then we're gonna talk about, the St. As Valley, you know, what's her name? What's her name? Shelby's group? What they're doing and how much money they're getting. I mean, there's so many variables that we're working with here in this community to try to get to that might affect our numbers too. I just think we
Yeah.
have so many variables here. I appreciate what you're trying to do. There's so many things. Because then you can go after the next Abby that comes up and they say, oh, you didn't like their clicks, or we didn't like their clicks. Because so how do we know that that's gonna be that adds to what that number that we're all trying to be sticking to?
Because it's an industry standard. So if the whole goal is an increase in TOT revenue, and you're saying this is what our overarching goal is, okay, well then where are we with the TOT revenue? It says 43%, but we know that number is probably actually 51% decrease, okay? So we know what our actual numbers are. You then bring in a company, and they come in and they work 6 months or a year. Then you can do a comparison. You could do another comparison, another 6 months and a year. And because you have a baseline that is standardized, that whether it's finances, whether it's science, you always want to have that baseline, a control group. That's what's not here. There's not a control group. So anyone can come in and do anything because there's no control group. What is the measurement to see if their marketing is effective?
Okay.
Typically in the past, they would put billboards up. And it's like everybody's seeing it, you hope it makes an impact. Now, the whole point is, with analytics in the background, it may seem like it's a lot of variables, but those variables are accounted for if it's set up in a reasonable way, and it takes into account those variables. So it's not a difficult thing, but it would give us a baseline. And I think, I mean, I don't know, with the data for you, Cheryl, would you want to have that to see accurately?
Yeah, so I mean, from what I think you're saying is, I think if we can bring in any more agencies or anyone, just to be clear about what our baseline is, and then understanding what that goal is and where we need to move forward.
Yeah, so you could get a picture as to whether their marketing is effective,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a fair question would be, is there a industry standard to normalize the data? Is there something in the hospitality world that other organizations are using to normalize? That's what I think you're trying to get at, is
And
to
yes,
it's not gonna be 100% accurate, but to get a little more closer to what's the net effect of what's going on in
Right.
the market.
It has to be
versus what's going
acceptable
on with
to
marketing.
everybody in the circle here. And the council has to agree to that, and that they agree that that group that's gonna be brought in to find out that baseline, that we all agree to, that's what it is. So this is kind of new. This is like brand new if we do this, isn't it?
Are you saying brand new for this group or brand new in the
Brand-
industry?
No, brand new for here, we haven't done this before.
No, I think, no,
I
it
mean, you're
will
trying to
be.
bring something in that's brand new, that we haven't even brought to the council didn't even know about this, so
No,
I'm just
this,
saying.
okay, let me clarify, this is not brand new as far as bringing to the council. This is an industry standard when it comes to measuring marketing efforts.
I understand, but now this
So-
is brand new coming to this table here, you're bringing this to the table about what you're doing, what you want to do. This is brand new, when has this been brought up before? It's brand new
To bring
today.
up what before, I'm not
What you're
understanding
talking
what
about,
you're
setting up a
saying.
baseline.
But that's,
You want to do an industry set, aren't you trying to establish an industry standard here? Yes?
I
Baseline.
guess the miscommunication is that that would be something that is already built in. It's not setting up something
You're
new.
just asking Cheryl or whomever is to do that. Can they start doing that? That's what you're asking today. Is that what you're asking?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
I'm just asking where, the baseline. If you're trying to set this up, we have not been doing this. You're asking the table here about, we have not been doing this. So you want to start doing this now. Is that what you're asking?
But the thing is, if you have digital marketing, it's something that was probably already should have been being done. This is not something that just coming as a surprise today. This is something that should have been done, because otherwise, how are you guys measuring Abby's efforts?
So you're trying to say we're not doing something right now?
I didn't say
Oh,
that at
you
all.
just said- well,
I
what are you
asked you a
saying?
question.
Okay, what are you saying?
I was gonna say, from what I understand, it's just adjusting this data based on inflation, right? That's the only
Yes, yes.
the only change, and that's something we could each do individually. But you're just asking if the city could provide the data.
Yes,
adjusted by
anybody looking
inflation.
at a visual chart, if you're looking at the visual chart or you're looking at the numbers, it skews this way. But when you're looking at data like this and comparing numbers in dollars, typically, just as a part of just a financial setup, you would take into account inflation, the time value of money, the fact that the dollar is less. So that's it. It's not,
Okay.
it's not a big deal.
So,
It's just-
so
yeah.
maybe taking what Tracy's suggesting as like making 2019 sort of like the foundation, and going from those numbers over the next 4 years, and then looking at inflation, going that maybe we were up 23% this year, but if you include inflation in 2022, it's this amount of dollars.
Right,
So-
and you can still keep the same charts that you have right now, but typically in a financial report like this, you would have another chart and you would say, okay, but here's the data raw, right? But here's the real meaning behind the data. The thing is, data is not helpful unless you can drill down the meaning of it, right? So.
But it has to be based against something, another concrete.
Right. But it goes all the way back to 2005, 2006. So all you have to do is just put in the number, the dollars based on US. It already has programs that know the inflation, so it'll spit out the numbers like that. So it'll take
But how far back do we wanna go?
Just
What is our foundation?
back
We want-
here, it's 2005, 2006. So I'm just saying another column, right, that gives the true picture of what the decrease or increase in revenue is.
Counting
And-
inflation into the
Correct.
factor, right, but how
Correct.
far back, do we really wanna go back to 2005 and?
She could go back to, to me personally, it doesn't matter, 10 years back is a baseline, it doesn't matter. Right here, she just has 2005, 2006, so that's why I said that. But you can go back to whatever, but you want a clear picture, because if you have a new marketing agency coming in, you could be like, well, yes, you improved this by 20%, this is great. However, if there's another year of inflation at almost 10%, did they really improve it by 20%, or was it more like 14% actually? So you want to have that idea so that you can have an accurate measurement of their performance. That's just setting a foundation.
Maybe it's a question for prospective agencies to see how other clients of theirs account for the concerns or these issues. Because I'm sure this isn't the first time this has come up.
Totally agree with that.
I know in the restaurant industry, they talk about year over year sales, but they also take a look at foot traffic.
Right.
Yeah.
So you look at both of those together, and sales may be up 15%, but traffic's only up 5%. Well, that tells you that there's an inflation factor, or you've taken pricing or what have you. But I'm sure the agencies have been asked this sort of question before, so.
You know,
Yeah.
within the city of Solvang, for instance, this last year, Hatson House has been closed for almost a year. That's 71 rooms that you're getting no TOT on. In 2008, I remodeled Hotel Corp, and we were down 6 months. That was 133 rooms you got no TOT on. So you have to take a lot of things into consideration in the equation.
That's a good point.
And that's, so if you get into all of it, I think you're gonna get into maybe,
Yeah,
Well-
the TOT per bed and then adjusting it, looking at.
yeah, but you didn't, you know, you look at the different hotel rooms. How many hotel rooms do we have right now? About 750?
Probably more than
Yeah,
that.
about 750, but
But
then,
the way that you would account for that is that you know your total of rooms, right? So you would divide it by the number of rooms that are actually
yeah, that were
available.
up and running.
Yeah, so that would define the picture. So it would
Okay.
take into account that rooms have been taken out. And my whole point in saying this is that Abby's performance, it was very hard to measure it because a baseline had not been established. And so if you're looking at digital marketing always has to include a baseline. And that's what I didn't see. So when I'm looking at these numbers, and if we're talking about getting a new company in, for whatever reason, for the digital marketing, I think you would agree that you need a baseline. So what does that
So
look
it
like?
sounds like, are you looking to get some sort of software program or something to provide this information?
Yeah, I mean, you could go online, they have so many programs and it's free.
Okay.
And it'll spit out the information that you need. And if you need any help, I'm more than happy to help you.
Thank
You're welcome. All right. Does anyone, any other members have comments about the TOT? Anyone in the audience? No? All right. So we're gonna move on to discussion item 4C. Discussion to review the next step with the marketing agency's resignation.
So I think with this agenda item, what I would like to do is actually kind of have three little separate. I had an offboarding call with the Abbey agency yesterday, so if you guys want, I'm happy to go over every single detail we discussed, where it's at, and then if you guys have questions, more recommendations, let me know. And then kind of the next steps, items that I've been trying to do to move forward. And then ideally to get a subcommittee to kind of review the scope of work, the current marketing plan, and get input on that to kind of move forward, because it'll be probably a little bit more rolling up the sleeves. So, does that work? Great.
Yep.
Okay, so regarding social media, Abbey Agency wrote out and scheduled Twitter posts until March 15th and provided all the assets to me. I'm taking those and posting them onto Facebook. They dissolved the new Facebook page along with the business manager account. Public relations, the PR will end on March 1st, which was today. We've updated the media inquiry on the website, so it says info@Solvang USA as a contact. There were a few other Google forms that were PR related. I went ahead and took those off because they were Google forms shared between myself and the Abbey agency and just put the contact information. So FAM coordination, they did secure a journalist with Pop Sugar. And so she is gonna be coming out in April. They asked if we wanted them to keep handling it or if I should take it on. I went ahead and said I will do it, so we'll have some savings there. They did create an itinerary though for me, so I can kind of base it off that. So they did do some work beyond just securing. They also secured a Cosmopolitan journalist, and she's actually coming out next weekend. So the photographer was supposed to come out March 20th. They made us they made the introduction. I talked with the photographer. He had a previous relationship with the Abbey agency. He said he comes, he shows up, he shoots, and he's out. So he's like, unless you have a very detailed, shot list of models, businesses, places, I don't want to waste your time, your money, and my time. So he had a very busy schedule. We both decided to table the project until we have that information. so they will not be charging the content creation. Reports, they will provide one final report that will show February 1st through March 15th. That final report will be sent on March 30th. The website, I'm working with the Abbey agency as well as the city attorneys to get the website hosting into our hands. We talked about the visit.solvangusa.com landing page that they created. They did offer if they want to put that page into our back-end system. They were very nervous about how it could screw things up even further and changes would be hard. So we both decided that they were going to just send the files, and so then with a new developer or any other webmaster, they can take those files and then work it from there. The billing items that they outlined, the account management and strategy bill will be billed for February and half of March. Public relations will be billed for February only. Social media will be billed February retainer and half of the March retainer. Digital experience will be $1,000 for the maintenance and 50% in March. The media buy for Q1, so this was pre-billed and paid for. They stopped the media buy on February 15th. They will pull the receipts the week of March 21st and provide full reconciliation. I did ask them to do a listing in the Central Coast map, which was $350, so they will deduct that as well, and then provide any reimbursements to the city of Solvang. All passwords, all creative assets, from working files to videos, photos from the immersion trip will be sent on a hard drive, and we will have that by March 30th. So any questions or comments? And again, just had the conversation yesterday, so kind of put this as an attachment for the agenda.
Maybe a stupid question, but you said that we've closed down the Facebook page, so do we have a Facebook?
So, yep, that's another item. So, Vashti was able to get access to the original Solvang USA Facebook page. So with that, they felt the need, we didn't need the new one created. Yes.
Do we ask questions amongst ourselves or take the speaker?
We can ask questions of staff if there are questions on the report.
And then afterwards, you do the, okay.
Were you done, Cheryl? I'm sorry.
I mean, I know I'm happy to answer any questions
I'm
on this.
sorry.
I can also talk about some of the stuff I've done moving forward, or if you want to do questions now, just on the Abbey agency offboarding, is fine.
So just in summary, Abbey has agreed to to turn over all the materials. that they
Absolutely,
will
yes.
get.
Yep, yeah.
Okay. Question about the social media, because I know when Connie was here, she was saying that contractually to post 1 to 2 times a week, when the contract was actually 9 to 12 times a week. And they were supposed to be doing blogs in the contract, and has discussion been had about them refunding some of those fees since they couldn't post on Facebook and then they weren't doing what they were contractually obligated to post on the other platforms.
Right. From what the contract had, and I can pull up, I think it was 3 to 4, but I think
Oh, yes.
it was
sorry.
within all the other platforms that they were posting on. I mean, we can go back and I'm happy to have those discussions. I also do feel that they made a good effort in, trying to get the Solvang USA Facebook page. And kind of above and beyond other stuff that wasn't, but if we feel that we need to get a refund, I'm happy to go back to them and have that discussion.
Yeah, because I have their contract, and it's actually 9 to 12 times that they were supposed to be posting a week, optimized across each platform, 3 to 4 each platform. And I think there was some miscommunication because she stated 1 to 2 times, and that's what they were doing. When it was supposed to be 9 to 12 times. And they were also supposed to be doing blogs per their contract. So we were paying them about $4,000 for that. And they, if they couldn't get access to Facebook, at least the other platforms, they could have been posting, and that wasn't done. And then they never posted anything on YouTube either. So it would be great if we could get some of that money refunded.
I don't know if they were supposed to, it says Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I think they ran ads on YouTube, but I don't think they were posting any videos or anything on YouTube.
It was in their presentation when they broke down what they were supposed to be doing. But, and I also, if I recall correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because she said that, you know, they weren't doing ads on Instagram for Facebook, for the new Facebook page, but they were. So I have their ad buy here, and they bought those ads on Instagram too. So it would be nice if we could get some of that money back as well. Because that money can go towards, you know, a new website. The last thing, hold on one second, please. The last thing was she talked about the immersion trip, and I think she said that they only charge us $4,800, but they put extra fees on separate line items. So they charge $4,800 and then $2,500 separately for hard travel costs. And then they charge other $5,000 charges. So that may be gone, but at least for the social media doing that, because that's like over $40,000. That would be great to get some of that back. Yes, ma'am.
Right, so all those things are great, okay? I have the thing right here, time is of the essence, okay? I'd like to see if we can I'd like to vote that we get this sounds like litigation, that we're gonna have to sit down and we're gonna have to confer with them to get their money, okay, for them to agree to return some of that money back. I don't think we should put Cheryl in that position right now if we're trying to move forward with all these other things on the agenda for Cheryl to do that. And if we can figure a way out, I'd like to move to have Cheryl hand that off to somebody to deal with this, because it is important. We need our money back, and I think the council would like to have the money back. So let's vote to have it addressed, but not loud. I'm Cheryl's got a few other things that we want her to do, and I think if she's held to do that all alone, I don't think she's gonna get it done besides doing everything else that we're asking her to do. Do you agree?
I don't, because with all due respect, we're having a discussion right now, and she was talking to us about the offboarding process and where they were. And in that, if they're closing out a contract permanently and there are questions about charges that we have, this is the time to bring it up.
You are bringing it all up. You are bringing it
Well,
up.
please let me finish, because I didn't interrupt you. We're not, and I'm not telling Cheryl that she has to go do this today. I'm bringing up considerations and closing out the contract. Cheryl can give it to whoever she chooses to, or do whatever she chooses to do with this information. But there's nothing wrong with me pointing out the fact that we were.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
Again, I didn't interrupt you. But I'm merely pointing out that we paid for things at the closeout of this contract that we didn't get. And if we're discussing reconciliations with money and getting a final tally of how much they're going to return, this is something that she needs to know, at least in my opinion. And I'm sorry, what was the vote that you wanted to take? Were you following?
That we vote to have
You wanted a
everything you're
motion?
addressing right there. I want to put a motion on the floor. Not yet, but I said I would like to do that, to address every one of those items that you have lined item up there, that we give that to her, and it gets taken care of, and we move on to the next item, because I think it's important that we move forward.
Okay, because I don't think we're doing motions, because right now we're doing
Well,
discussion.
okay, then we're not doing a motion then, and I'm just saying that I would like to have that, all those items that you're talking about right now, because they're all important, aren't they?
I'm not sure what the rub is with you.
No,
We're
there's
having
no
a
rub,
discussion.
there's no rub. All I'm
Okay.
saying is let's move on with that, okay? And let's
We can move on. Right now, the discussion on the table is about the closeout of the Abbey contract. That is what we are doing. You said what you wanted to say, other people have said what they wanted to say, and I'm saying what I would like to say to contribute to the discussion. My contribution was the fact that we paid for things, and if the contract is being closed out, I'm bringing it to the attention of the marketing manager who's closing out the contract with the agency. That's simply where we are. Does anyone else have a comment or a question?
I have a question to Cheryl. Is there anything you think that is potentially refundable to the city of Solvang that you feel was not delivered,
Well,
in your opinion?
I can take these items back, and I probably work with Dave here, so to figure out the best way to handle it and move forward.
I mean, I'm going through, the whole budget, I pulled the invoices, everything. last month, I'm gonna say it like that, last month when we met, only so much was paid. This month, much more money was paid to them.
Yep, so.
And can you explain that and
Yep.
go through?
I can, so they actually, there was about 3 or 4 months that the invoices were not getting paid. So they were emailing them to me, they said it was also emailed to our invoice email alias, however, they were not receiving it. So it was just months of invoicing that got paid at the same time, however, they sent them monthly, if that makes sense.
Okay, and Dave, we may need your, because I think, one of the things is, it was a vote, last time for an invoice audit for Abby, and it was a motion passed 7-0. But the reason why we're also bringing this up is because it wasn't on the agenda this time. So, as far as what that invoice audit, the results of it, we don't know. And that's why we're asking these questions before the final closeout is done, since this contract is being closed out. So where do we stand?
So,
Should
yep,
we
so,
wait?
yeah, I mean, I can, put that on the next agenda. I'm happy to send all the invoicing, the items that I've kind of been tracking. I was anticipating them to come and present that, and so, that's why I didn't put it on this agenda, nor did I have the bandwidth to kind of do that. But that was my anticipation, that they would come and go through those line items with the committee. But they are not here, so we can still do that if you would like.
Okay. Would it be helpful, or do you think that it's
I mean, if we
probably a
feel that
lost
we need to
cause?
get reimbursement, then yeah, I feel I need to go back through and measure every cost and the contract and their deliverables. So yeah.
Do
I
you
can do
think
that.
there's a chance of getting that money back, and would it be a amount that's worth it?
I would have to do that, and then also depend on Dave's professional input of if it's worth it or not, so.
I can probably chime in very generally that you have to not only take into the cost-benefit analysis of spending the money to try to get that, but you're also, one of your concerns is going to be who replaces Abby. And if you are getting into litigation with your prior vendor on this, it may make it nearly impossible to find a successor on it. So that will be not your final decision, but that will be your policy recommendation to the city council, because ultimately the city council will need to make a determination of whether or not it chooses to pursue that. TAC can't tell staff, go and pursue it, if it's going to result in litigation exposure to the city. You can make a recommendation to the council and say, we believe that as a policy matter, there's X thousands of dollars that are standing out there. We think the city should pursue that, and then the council can make a determination of whether or not it wishes to spend that money to go and pursue that.
I think the confusion for some of us is that last time, a month ago, they had been paid about $50,000. And then recently, it's at $180,000, and they've been paid in full. And there were questions about some of the charges that they had made last time, and they were supposed to come back, as Cheryl said, and substantiate those charges, because certain charges, we didn't get the work, and so, or what they were supposed to do, like with the social media. And so as it stands now, it's like, it's closed out, okay. So do we just move on, or do we try to?
What we could do, I mean, we could create like a subcommittee if someone wants to kind of meet with me, and we can go through those line items and then pile those questions and then take them back to the Abbey agency for them to follow up on.
I mean,
Okay.
if there's a way that we can size it to see if it, kind of to Dave's point, is it worth going after? I mean, we don't need to have it down to the penny and every
It's
nickel.
about 75 to 100,000.
But what's the opportunity, I guess, the guesstimate of how much that we could retrieve? And I think the point Kim is making is there's a sense of urgency of moving on to another agency and gaining traction where we didn't have it with Abby. So I'm just trying to think through what's the best use of the limited resources we have, because we are in great need of a new agency and moving forward. So I don't know if there's a way to size what we're talking about. I know you're saying it's 75,000 or whatever, but of that, how much of that do we think is retrievable, and is it worth it at this point in time? That's kind of
And
what I'm concerned about.
personally, I understand the thought of we need another agency like ASAP, but that thought was also there with the last two agencies, and it moved forward very quickly and didn't end so well. So, it's, you know, kind of like the definition of insanity, maybe taking a different route, and even though it may seem like you're, you know, taking too long, putting those foundational pieces in place would hopefully lead us to a different end. So for me personally, I don't feel like time is of the urgent as far as skipping over steps that should be done, so that we don't get into this predicament and lose a lot of money once again. Because a lot of money has been paid, and we're kind of back where we started from, you know. So that's my 2 cents. Does anyone else?
Tracy, I wanna say, I think my biggest concern is we had 64,200. We've now paid an additional, you know, over 108 is the way I figured it out from looking at. There was a procedure of doing the invoicing of a 5-step process that was not done the way it should have been done to see all the measurable items that they were supposed to be doing.
So they did deliver those, so, I can send them to you, I can put them on next agenda, but they did update all those, invoices. So I do have those in place.
Yeah, but I think that was, the problem was they weren't doing something from the time we had a conversation. They all of a sudden send invoices, they want out of the contract and they're paid in full. And it doesn't feel comfortable spending city dollars in that way. That's all I think is the gist of the conversation. Yes, I think we have great trust in you to say there's some things we can put in your hands to be doing. Definitely that you have the knowledge, the capability from your past history to do. I'm just kind of, we've spent a lot on nothing. And, you know, I just want to make sure, is the city getting their rightful money is all I think what we're supposed to be doing here at the end of the day.
We'll take public comments now. I have 2 speaker cards. Let's see. And
Can I go over the next steps that I've been working on?
yeah.
And then, perfect, so they'll be quick. I know when I was on the TAC, with IDK and Cogs and Marvel, they had subcontracted PR efforts out to, Stiletto Marketing and, social media to Islet, agency in Long Beach. They, I think, and I feel like if other people wanna chime in, they did a great job. Everything was organic on social media, so they weren't spending money, but they were still getting great engagement and traction. I reached out to both of them for proposals. I just got them in today. And I've also reached out to some other people as well. So that's why I would also like to have a subcommittee that we can review those and kind of figure out, you know, what's the next steps. If that is even what you guys recommend, I just did this in time of essence, since our last TAC, so.
anyone have any comment?
I'd like to see it.
You'd like to see what?
So let's do a subcommittee. Let's do it. That's my comment.
So again, subcommittee would just be only two of the TAC committee members can be on an ad hoc committee.
You can have less than a majority. I would say that it's going to be more nimble if you only have 2. But since there are 7 members, you could have as many as 3 on that for an ad hoc subcommittee. I just know that in setting up subcommittees, it can sometimes be harder to schedule and get meetings the more people you have, so.
I think you had said you wanted a subcommittee for 2 things. For one, for the RFP for the website, and then for the goals and marketing plan and goals. And the only thing with that is that kind of falls under your purview to establish what the marketing plan is and the marketing goals. And then it would seem that the subcommittee, after you establish that and set that forth, then they would assist in accomplishing some of the steps that you need or providing feedback, right?
Yep, So I don't know if you can share or get my screen up, but the goals that, the marketing plan goals that were created, these were set up by Abby Agency prior to my starting. So really, I could bring these to a subcommittee. I know there was some friction with this marketing plan, so
Right.
if this isn't what we should be working on, then that's where I want a subcommittee. So this would be the baseline, and then if this is kind of not the right approach, that's what I would look for input from the subcommittee.
Right, but but you have your own marketing plan though, right? Like overall marketing
I
plan?
have not established a marketing plan yet. I have no budget to do any marketing. So.
No, but like your overall marketing, like your integrated marketing plan overall.
So it's hard to create one of those without a budget. I started, the Abby Agency was already hired, and I started and had to put on Yule Fest. And so that was my budget, and that's what I concentrated on for this first few months. And in that time, I also felt the need for a new website, which is why I've been, last meeting, went to council.
I
So-
guess, sorry?
So we don't go back on D right now, can we keep D separate off the line item, because it is an actual item on D? And just go with the resignation, what you're doing, and I think to understand what you're doing, I think we have a good understanding. And you want to hire Ms. Ferguson and the agency that was previously doing
That was my first initial approach, and that's why I reached out to them. Since then, I've reached out to other people as well and gotten some, and waiting still to get some more votes.
and we would use the additional leftover funds to help do that, and you would manage that.
Yes, and I would have to have that all approved, but yes, that would be, the anticipation is using that remainder funds towards. I don't anticipate actually using all of it at this point. I think especially as we gear up for summer, I don't know if we need to be doing a lot of paid social media ads. So there's that opportunity as well to pull back on some of the spending and really think about our approach moving forward.
Okay, number 2 was your PR media that you were working on with it. When you said number 2, social media, information, and then you had PR media for their send-off, for their resignation, for their pulling them.
So, what was the question?
Well, I guess the question's gonna be is, on the resignation of Abby Agency, how are we handling the media? Because it's already in the Lompoc Record, it's in the Santa Maria Times, it's on many.
Oh, the media spend.
No, their narrative is out there, and I don't think their narrative is the narrative that is our narrative necessarily. So I guess my question is, who decided when they left, who was writing the narrative on the paper? Because when we go back through the last meeting was they weren't doing their job, and we just wanted to see them correctly do their job. And in the meantime of this meeting, from the last meeting, we've lost a marketing company, and they're out there all over saying that my council doesn't know what they're doing, and I don't think that's true. I think you know what you're doing, but it was very uncomfortable to read that, and I didn't like it, and I don't think that is who we are. And when people read that look at last month's meeting, they were not doing their job correctly to the city of Solvang. They were not giving us our deliverables.
So yeah, we could look at putting a press release out together and stating those facts and sending it off to the local press.
Has anybody read the narrative in this room for our attorney or anybody? Because it was not very favorable to the city of Solvang, and it shouldn't be that way. All we did was ask for them to follow a contract, was all we were asking.
Madam Chair, if I can interject here, if there's going to be any kind of communications from the city, it's going to be a policy level decision of the city council. It's not going to be made by this. So if this committee has a recommendation to make to the council about a response like that, how the city is portrayed to the public is quintessentially a council determination. And if the council, upon recommendation from the TAC, believes that something needs to be said, that should be made by the council.
Would that be a motion and then we vote?
Well, I'm just letting you know what the process would be. So in other words, this body here has no independent power to direct that a press release be issued.
So, okay, because there was a lot of discussion there, I was trying to keep up. So, should I ask if there's a motion, or do we go to speaker comments?
Well, I think Ms. Schallenberger has provided her staff report. If there are no further questions from the committee, then you could entertain public comment and then come back and give direction, if any, as a committee as to what you'd like to do next.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? Okay, let's see, we have speaker Charles Warner from Buellton.
None of these microphones work, right?
Yes. No, they do.
Oh, now it's working?
Now it's working, yes.
Oh, okay, good, because I don't speak very loudly. The chair of this committee, Vashti Wilson, was encouraged by the city to act as a fiscal watchdog regarding our taxpayer dollars spent on tourism marketing. Vashti took that role seriously and uncovered material breaches of the contract by the outside marketing company. What concerns me is what the city has done or not done with the information Vashti provided to them. Rather than confronting the marketing company regarding their numerous material breaches of the contract, the city simply rolled over and paid the marketing company all the money they claimed they were due. To add insult to injury, the CEO of the marketing company had the temerity to publicly blame the city of Solvang for the contract termination. Here is a quote from an article that appeared in the Lompoc Record on Tuesday. Quote, "Unfortunately, the internal climate created by the city of Solvang's leadership resulted in unexpectedly adversarial and combative interactions that took our team by surprise. We regret that a more respectful, productive, and collaborative environment was not present to enable a successful marketing effort." End quote. The Abbey Agency CEO, Patrick Ty Whitaker, wrote. I urge Vashti Wilson to continue her role as a tourism marketing dollars watchdog for the taxpayers of Solvang. I also want to remind the city of Solvang that the city's funds come from their taxpayers, and the city has a fiduciary duty to spend that money wisely. To that end, I urge the city of Solvang to do a forensic audit of the city's financial records for the past 4 years, including a review of all contracts with all outside vendors over a certain dollar amount. The city has the right to recover damages for all material breaches of contract by those vendors. Many people in Solvang voiced their opinions at the city council meeting on Monday regarding the gay pride banners and painting of crosswalks. This is healthy. This is democracy at work. Astonishingly, no one in Solvang is up in arms about the continuous waste of taxpayer dollars being paid to outside vendors who do not perform their contractually required duties. The taxpayers in Solvang need to make their voices heard on this issue. More importantly, it is time for the city of Solvang to stand up to these people who are ripping off our taxpayers.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Brenda K. Ball.
Thank you, Tourism Chair Vashti Wilson and the Tourism Advisory Council for the opportunity to speak before you today. As you know, I'm Brenda K. Ball, and I did give this speech pretty much in front of City Council on Monday, but since some of you were not there, I thought I should give it again. I've added a few things. As you know, I manage the current SolvangUSA.com website from its infancy, and I created the social media pages that are still being used by Solvang. At the last Tourism Advisory Council, however, it was mentioned that the marketing team could not access the social media. Last September, I sent an email for the marketing director to gain access. Regarding SolvangUSA.com website, it was mentioned that the website was too old to be managed. I want to share with you what the problem is with the current solvingusa.com website. Excuse me. It appears the software, which provided easy access to the management of the website, the CRM, that's the contact resource management software, which allowed us to easily maintain the Solvang business listings, and the CMS, the content management system, which allowed us to manage the marketing content, was canceled probably to reduce cost. I believe this happened quite a while ago. However, removing those software systems made the website unmanageable because the web developers built the website to pull the information from those two back-end databases. I do agree that a new website is needed. The current solvingusa.com website is 9 years old. My further recommendation is that the domain name and hosting be moved from any marketing contractor's possession and moved to a well-known domain name excuse me, and hosting company such as HostGator, Bluehost, DreamHost, just to name a few. TechCrunch, Mashable, PC Magazine, CNET, Consumer Affairs, and on, have great lists of the top 9 or 10 hosting companies. And these websites include simple, broad explanations about the pros and cons of these recommended web hosting companies. Best practices suggest that the marketing company have upload access only, but the business entity, in this case, the City of Solvang, should own the domain name and the hosting of their website. Also, you will want to make sure that the website is secure, that it has a current SSL certificate, and that it is not allowed to expire. An SSL certificate secures a website to protect important visitor data from cyber criminals. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to serve Solvang.
Thank you, Betty.
Denise Elamy.
Hello, I'm Denise Elamine, and I am a resident of Solvang. I'm a taxpayer. And I witnessed the city council meeting when our Mayor Fonte saved this illustrious city $40,000 and took my vote away so that we could put Robert Clark in. I don't see anyone or the mayor complaining about this $1 million fund, or $100,000 that we've just given to a company. I am really upset how I would think that each one of the city councils would be up here complaining about that amount of money being lost. Also, we have a lot of complaints from city council people when little organizations come and beg, no less than beg for $500, $1,500 to be donated to their organization, and we turn them down or ask them for financial documents from 2 to 3 years just to give these people $2,500 or $5,000 out of our budget. Shame on you. And you sit here and you let $100,000, $50,000 just blow over, and the attorney says, well, it's not worth going after. What's not worth going after is people who live in this city who ask for some of their taxpayer money back to do something that they want to do, and you deny them. You have the nerves to deny them. And you let Abby write about the people, Vasti, who has done a great job. This is what diversity looks like. But whenever we write up about diversity, we always talk about somebody being hostile. And it's always people of color. You can't write anything about people of color unless you use the word hostile. Give me a break. She's bringing diversity in here. She's calling you guys out. You're spending our money, and you're not accountable for it. Grow up and stop spending my money. Stop taking my vote away. $40,000, Mr. Mayor, you saved us, but now we've lost 100. Where are you complaining? You're not. Thank you.
Any other comments? So, did anyone want to do a motion on for,
What agenda, what one are we on now? Where are we at?
4C.
we're on
4C,
4C?
Where?
4C,
4C.
4C, that's what I thought, we're still on 4C.
yeah. Would anyone like a motion for
Okay.
4C?
Yeah, I'll make a motion on 4C.
Yeah, I'd like to see that we take this, what Vashti's brought up, and we bring that,
Right.
all the items, make that a line item for them to address, and each
Okay.
one of those, and give it back to Cheryl, and then we see if we can get that litigated, and we can get our money back.
And I second.
Okay.
But we have to, that has to go to the council, right?
So,
Well, I mean, we vote to give it to the council, we'd have to agree, and then
Right.
let the council have the chance at it. I'm just saying.
so if I can try to interpret the motion is to direct staff to do a line item analysis of what items can be recovered
Yes,
and provide a recommendation to the city council to
Mm-hmm.
recover such items from Abby as can be recovered.
that's perfect language, thank you, Dave.
And I know that it's a motion on the floor, just as a side note, I'm more than happy if you would like me to break that down for you. I'm more than happy to do that and help you with that, and if that's something that passes. So I guess we have a first and a second, and we take a vote. Okay. Tracy? Well, I don't
I
expect your
second
vote to, so I don't get his vote.
Well,
You seconded the motion, right?
There's a motion and a second, and then you vote. All in favor?
Okay,
All opposed?
got it.
That's how it would go.
Okay. I'm a little bit discombobulated right now. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay,
Passes 7-0.
thank you. Any more motions? Okay, we will move on.
Does anyone want to be a subcommittee?
Someone, okay.
Cheryl, could, sorry, sorry, you go.
I'm sorry, Dave, you were about to say something?
The committee could appoint a subcommittee, or if 2 or even 3 members just wish to work with Cheryl directly, you don't need to formally set a subcommittee. The subcommittee presumably would report back its findings to the committee as a whole. But if it's just kind of a staff level work of going through paper, going through the line items, it might just be easier to have 2 members of the committee raise their hand and say they'll work with Cheryl. Sounds like Chair Wilson, if you're willing to do that, I don't know if there's someone else that would be willing to work on that as well.
I certainly would be.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
okay, so as far as the invoices? Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So you don't need a formal action to do that. You certainly could set up a subcommittee. I'm not dissuading you from doing that, but because this is something that may just be a meeting, it might be easier just to have a couple members of the committee do that meeting and be done with it.
Yeah, we can knock this out. I already have it done for you. We can knock it out. I think Cheryl was talking about a subcommittee for the website, well, that's gonna be the next line item. For the marketing plan, I'm trying to go to your message that, the marketing plan and marketing goals. My personal opinion is that as the marketing manager, because I think that falls under your purview too. You set that, and then we provide, or we could have a subcommittee that can provide advice or input, or, and how to attain those goals. But personally, I feel like it would be a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And that's not like most of our area of expertise, to establish what the overarching marketing plan and goals should be for the year. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know if anyone else has a comment.
I think Cheryl's real capable of making a marketing plan from
So I
her
can bring that
previous
back.
job
Yep. I can bring
and
that back.
working on a subcommittee. I think there's enough people here that have great expertise from the previous things, and I think, you know, I think we have to take what we have been paid to do. You have to do something in your job from, you know, I have your job description here from reading what you do. And I think that's something you should be doing for us, for the city, on where we are for the next really year. I mean, you did a great job on working on Yule Fest. There are things as we put the SWAT together 2 months ago, we said there are things we can do better and we can work on. So I think those are things you should be putting the whole year down, just like the calendar, and how you wanna, you know, help see, I think, funding spent. I mean, there's gonna be funding coming back no matter what. There's a little bit of funding left over in this contract. And how do we spend that funding? And it's not just all on the company that you recommended, Anna Ferguson with Stiletto, and the other young ladies that are gonna be.
Yeah, so I have other proposals, so I didn't know if time wasn't of the essence, I can bring those all to the next TAC meeting for discussion and review. I can just keep gathering those. Or I thought if there was more urgency, then that's why a subcommittee.
I think, at least for me, and watching the Solvang City Council and when you were doing your presentation with them, and I may be wrong, but I felt that their guidance was that they wanted you to develop an integrated marketing plan, even if you don't have the money right now. Like, what is the overarching plan with all of the components? And then, after you establish all those different components, then it's like, Stiletto can do this, and they can do that, and then we can provide input and feedback and help with that. But right now, I'm not sure what the overarching plan is. And as you said, many people were not pleased with Abby's plan. I wasn't fond of it. So I'm just not sure what the umbrella is that it would fall under for us to be able to provide.
Yep. Then I can work on doing that and
Okay.
bring that back to the TAC. Yep,
Cool,
thank you.
okay. And then can we get it to her by Monday or Tuesday? We'll have it to you by Monday or Tuesday for the invoice breakdown. Cool, okay. 4D, the discussion regarding Solvang USA website RFP process.
Yep, so that did go to council on Monday, and really the feedback from our council was to slow down, and so we won't be going to RFP. At this point, and to clarify, it's not that it's not manageable. I have been going in, adding events, making updates. It's just there's a lot of outdated information, and so I don't necessarily have the bandwidth to keep continuing making a lot of those updates and going through page by page. There is a server out there that has some of the PDFs. I cannot access these PDFs, and they're outdated, which is one of the reasons why I was hoping for a new site. But maybe it's, I know also people that can go through and do a website audit. Well, they did do a website audit, but for the content. So I'm talking about businesses that are no longer open, are still included in pages. So maybe just finding some assistance, or even if it's the TAC and they want to take 5 pages and look for errors, at least then I can go back and update stuff. So that's kind of where this website agenda item is at the moment. So.
That's why I wanted to bring it, because I was at the city council meeting and I heard Brenda speak on the CRM system, that it was outdated. So I think it sounds like when you turn the back end off of anything, it doesn't work. I mean, I know enough about, I have a serving system and I have a CRM system on mine. So my question is, how much would it cost to turn it back on? That is the real question right
So it
now.
actually never got turned off. At the agencies Tempest and IDSS have kept the lights on since 2019 with no real payments made to them. So they understand the importance of the website, and so they have literally kept the lights on.
But you can't, there are things you can't do, and there must be some reason you can't do them.
So there's, so there was like hard-coded information on all the pages. So if you notice now that logo has been updated, that was something Abby was able to do when we transferred the files over. But a lot of stuff was hard-coded, so it wasn't just a CRM that you can go in and change a telephone number. It was in the coding of the site. So no, I can go in and change things. I'm actually not using IDSS. I can actually just go in the backend system and add business listings. I can do the changes. It's just the content that's on the site that is outdated.
And Madam Chair, if I can chime in, I'm gonna take my city attorney's hat off and put on my tech hat. There are things with the current server environment that are making it difficult. Current installation of PHP, which is the back-end language that interprets the site, is about 3 generations too old at the server level. That could use a refresh. With respect to the secure socket layer, the SSL certificate, it's currently valid, but there is a line missing in what they call the htaccess file that allows all pages to be served securely, so that if people don't put in HTTPS, it will serve a non-secure page. That's an easy fix. But from a technical standpoint, because the software was designated and drafted on an earlier version of PHP, it's making it a little bit difficult to just kind of patch it together. It's like if you think about buying a 1950s vehicle and trying to put a catalytic converter on it. It can be done, it makes it just more difficult. And so a ground-up rebuild may be the correct way, and keeping it going during the interim is going to be the challenging part, because it's older software. And I'll let you know when I take my lawyer hat off and I put my technical hat on, I'm not charging the city for it. I do that, I did a lot of work in recovering the solvangusa.com domain for the city and working through that process, and that was all done pro bono to make sure that the city would have access to that.
So can I make a recommendation that maybe we bring a vote to the floor to maybe put an RFP out there for our website then? That sounds like that's what I'm hearing Dave is kind of saying, and is that what we need to be doing possibly, is what I'm hearing?
Well, that's what we went to council with on Monday, was to see if we could go to RFP, and it was not supported. So I think they want more information, so I can work on gathering some more details, laying out the issues with the current site, and provide them more information. So that's actually kind of what they were asking for. So I'm happy to go back and give them that. So.
If I may make a suggestion, as far as an actual subcommittee for this, and that subcommittee, what they would do is look at other city websites and get a list of 10 good ones that we could whittle down to like 3 or 4, and then see who built those. Then you would be able to start looking at, so I think what the city wanted is for it to be laid out, like what exactly is gonna be on this website, what are the costs, what is it gonna look like? But if you guys establish 10 websites, city websites that are well done, then it will give you all of that information you need, because you'll be able to see bam, 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 this is what they have on those websites. We'll be able to see who created those websites. You could reach out to those people, get informal quotes, and then that way you could come back here, we can look at it, right? Pick the top 3, and then I think the city would love for you to go before them with those informal quotes. 3 websites already vetted. This is what it'll look like. Here are some examples. Ready to go. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody ready to serve on that subcommittee?
I would, but I don't have enough expertise.
I mean, and it's also members, if you guys find websites and you discover on your own, you can email them to me and highlighting what you like, or if there's things you don't like, what you don't like about them. So even that would help.
I would do something like that.
Yeah.
I would do that.
That's gonna get you a lot of emails. How about this? Because I think this is what the staff member said at the planning thing for it to go through the chair. Why, can you guys email me, like if you see the website and put in that's what, I don't know, that's what the City of Solvang staff member said, so that.
I think that the more communications that are run through the chairperson, the more likelihood there is a potential for a Brown Act problem. If there are concerns, I mean, ultimately, if you have websites that you think are good, sending them to staff, and then staff can vet them and pull them together and present all of them or a subset of them to the committee as a whole, That way you're not having communications amongst yourselves about it. In directing inquiries through staff, that makes sense, but now you're having substantive conversations about, I like this about this website, Chair Wilson, what do you think, or I like this, and you're getting all these inputs. You are now the hub in that hub and spoke situation that I described. So I think if the committee has websites that it likes, it can send that information to Cheryl, say, I like the way that the hotel booking engine on this particular site works, and I'm forwarding you this, or I like this. And that way, Cheryl can look at it and say, okay, these are the things that I think can be on a Solvang USA refresh. These are things that will go into the RFP. We want a hotel booking engine. We want some type of reference. We want a calendaring system. Those are the things that I think will help inform ultimately what the information is that council is going to consider in terms of putting money towards that RFP and releasing that RFP. But I think just sending a bunch of websites without a little bit of context may not accomplish what the committee's looking to do.
No, I understand. I was looking at the training. That was a directive that literally they said from a city employee. Because they said they get so many messages. So they said it was all supposed to go through the chair. And if that's incorrect, it is what it is.
I'm not sure what training that was.
It was for the planning commission.
Okay,
It was a city employee, I don't know what her name, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Got it. So what we'll do is we'll select websites. Is there a standard heading you want so you know all those, what,
Yeah, maybe just website references.
okay. So website references, and then we'll send those, get those over to you. So that'll be great. Okay, is any public comment regarding,
Yes, ma'am.
yes?
Do I need to get on the microphone?
Yeah, you do, yeah.
You're,
Yeah.
You're not wearing your crown. We like hearing your voice.
oh, yeah, sorry, I gotta go.
All right, I'm a little confused. I'm sorry, if you don't know me, I'm Mark Infantier, resident of Solvang. I'm looking at Solvang USA on this. It's got a hotel booking on here. I can book a room, it has special rates, I can book rental cars, it's space. I don't understand why I'm hearing that this website doesn't work, because it all appears to be functioning just fine. Now, I don't know who updated that or who fixed it, but I'm a little confused about why everybody's saying it doesn't work.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it doesn't work. It's just the content is out of date. The phone number for the visitor center was wrong up until recently. So it's a functioning website, yes.
And it has phone numbers, you can book hotel online, it's got updated pictures. I'm confused. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, anyone have any motions? All right, moving on to 4E, discussion to receive the January report from the Abbey Agency.
Yep, so they've sent this over. Can you take my screen? So yeah, so I can take us through their January report. Let me know if I'm going too quickly, questions along the way. Want me to go slower, just let me know.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Especially since they quit the way that they did, and is it beneficial to see this report?
If it's,
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering why we're gonna spend the time
Okay.
looking at it
Yeah.
when we all have it in the packet and we can take our time.
What do you
and look at
feel,
it.
Cheryl?
it's totally just was to go for the committee. So if you guys are ready to move on, let's move on.
I am.
Yep,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
it was an agendized item. There may be members of the public who wish to speak on it.
Thank you. Members of the public? No? No? All right. We're losing them one by one, okay.
Can we see that though? I mean, I'm still wondering where these reports are. Are they in the packet?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see, we're moving on to 4F, verbal discussion on Solvang USA Facebook status.
Yeah, if you want to get the update?
So after the meeting last time, I think I had said during the meeting that, you know, there are different ways to gain access to that page. The problem was in trying to gain access, and saying that it was a city of Solvang, because it didn't ever belong to a business, it belonged to a person, Facebook won't tell you who it belongs to. Because it's privacy issues. So there's a back end way to find out though, if you go to the origin of the creation of the page. So that's what I did. I went back to the beginning and then thinking about the fact that Brenda K. Ball talked about creating the website, I figured that it was logical that she probably created the social media page too, the Facebook page. And so I asked her, and she said yes. And then I met with her to get everything transferred over. So within 2 days, we had ownership, we have ownership because the way Facebook works is that if you transfer a page, the person has to stay on for security purposes. That way no one is stealing pages for a certain number of days. And then once that's transferred to me fully, then if I transfer it, then I have to stay over 14 days for the next person. So when I got ownership of the page, which I have now, which I'm supposed to be transferring to Dave after this meeting, I gave full employee rights to Cheryl, and that she could do everything but delete the page. And personally, I feel like that's how the website and the social media should be set up. It should never have ownership under a person. Because if that person leaves or whatever happens, you're going to have the situation like you had now with trying to gain access. But what you do is you verify the page as a government-owned, city-owned, organization-owned page, and that it belongs to that entity, not a person. So we had access to the Facebook, we had ownership of it. I kind of wish they hadn't deleted the new one because we could have merged followers. And so any new followers that were gained that weren't already followers of the current page, we would have gotten those too. So it is what it is. But I will say, in gaining access to the Facebook page, and I have copies of it here, I saw that they never replied to any comments, any inbox messages. So as of July 1st, no one ever was responded to. So it was all these messages in there that never received a response. The Abbey agency did have some access because I could see their employee went in and made posts in August. And I think they made posts in December. So I'm not sure why they were not posting in the interim. But I went in there and cleaned up the page. Spent about 4.5 hours doing that as best I could because I had other things on my plate that day. But and it's at a space now where I think Cheryl, you started posting on it last Monday. Okay. So that's going to be transferred over to the city. And that's where we are.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
Okay, that's
anybody?
enough. Next.
All right, hold on, Kim. Yes, Brenda.
So you-
I just felt the need to make it clear that I did not hold that page hostage. When I no longer worked for Solvang CVB, I gave those passwords all to Mr. Kim Jensen. And when IDK came, let me say it this way. When I started the pages, remember, this was a long time ago, I had to convince the board that Facebook was even something we should be involved in. And the board of the CVB did decide that we would start the page. And at that time, the only way to have a page was to have it attached to a profile. So that's how my name was attached to it. And nobody along those steps of how many different people have been in marketing since I was let go in 2019. None of them tried to take me off there. I did not have access to post, but I was still the owner of it. But Vashti pointed that out, and when we went in there, well, actually Cheryl did ask me, And when I went in to look, it still had my name, and I sent that to Cheryl. Then Vashti went with Facebook and was able to take me completely off there. So just for the record, I've never tried to hurt Solvang.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just, to clarify, no, she was very helpful because she spent her Sunday and I had to walk her through, we have to do the transfer. I think there was some miscommunication. A invitation was sent to, Cheryl in September, and sometimes they go to the spam box, I don't know. I would say there were 11 owners on that page. So 11, so this is why you don't want people owning the page, because they all had to be cleared out. So just moving forward, it would probably be a really good practice to not have the individual and to even create a generic city account that you have if you want an account that's connected to the social media pages. But I'll need someone to verify that page. You'll have to have a phone number that can be called and everything like that, but it's a quick process.
And Madam Chair, if I may, again, taking off my lawyer hat, putting on my technical hat, with the exit of the former city manager, I spent probably 15 hours trying to recover all of the contacts with the Facebook. She was on the account. She had her personal account attached to some of these. I worked with IDK trying to get the information. I worked with former members of SCVB in trying to get old email addresses at solvangusa.com, which was one of the contacts reestablished, and so there was a significant amount of work done at the staff level on the city side trying to get that back. So we will greatly appreciate your efforts in being able to transfer that back over to the city so that we can continue to post at an administrative level as opposed to the employee level.
No, that is the administrative level. It is, when you're thinking administrative level, the admin is an owner.
What I'm saying is that it is a city function. So when a private individual who is on an advisory committee is an owner or has administrative access to that, that's probably not best practices for a government social media account. It should be someone within the government organization, whether it's an employee or a designated officer who has access to that. We appreciate, obviously, the efforts that were done to recover that. But since the assets of the SCVB were transferred over to the city, we have been trying to get access to the former assets of the SCVB for quite a long time. And so I agree with you, it will be better to have that within the city.
Well, and I'm going to say this to make it clear. Give me one. That page was about to be deleted with 31,000 people. We had a conversation at the last meeting and it was stated under no circumstances could you guys gain access to that page. And I actually gave 2 suggestions of gaining access and was shot down that it could be done. Okay, so 31,000 followers would have had to be a considerable amount of money to get those followers once again. I understand what you're saying, that you guys try to gain access to the page. I saw the letters that you guys sent into Facebook to gain access to the page. The issue is that this, whatever organization before the convention never had ownership of that page. That is why Facebook did not give access over, because they couldn't. So with that being said, it wasn't just Brenna K. Ball that was the owner. It was different marketing companies that you guys had come in that were then owners on the page. So the comment about me again transferring it to another person as an owner is not an ethical practice, and it's something that I was not willing to do, and I made it quite clear because it should have never been done in the first place. When the page was created, that's how it had to be created. Now it's 12 years later. Because of those same concerns of people taking individual pages, business pages, and doing exactly what has been done, that is why Facebook, years later, implemented another process of verifying a page. And as I stated, coming from a security, military background, I am not going to put this city in a place where they're going to be in another position of not doing things according to industry standard and the most ethical practice. And that's where I stood and that's where I stand. So I'm more than happy to transfer it over to the city manager, the mayor, or the city attorney. But that page should not be transferred over as far as ownership to any employee, and that's where I stand. And currently, as I have ownership of the page, that's where I am, with all due respect. Sorry?
I think we've already closed public comment.
Okay. And for G, verbal discussion to provide TAC update to City Council. So that would be us kind of just succinctly presenting to the City Council and letting them know where we are as far as what we decided upon and where we stand as a committee, which I think is probably a good idea to do semi-annually. Or thoughts?
I think it sounds like, I go to the city council meetings, I think it would be a good idea for this group to present in a way. I think maybe another month to get, right now, I don't think we need to present necessarily, because I think we need another month to show what we've done on the committees, and where we're at on the financials. But I think, yes, maybe in the month of May, like in the end of April, to maybe present. I don't think we're quite ready for that. You guys have all talked about working on different committees. I wasn't writing everything down, but I think we have 2 subcommittees right now on a financial and a website. And I think once we have those done, I think we have the ability to put things together at next month's meeting. And then I was going to see if we could bring something else, and I think we know where we're at then and have a better idea of how to present. And Cheryl did present last week, because the same G4, item 4G is what or 4C is what she presented in your packet. So that was the same item that we were presented basically at council, correct? Pretty much, yeah.
4C and
4C, yes.
and 4D.
And pages on your packet, just so if you go, because I printed out the pages that were relevant to me. So pages 62 and 63 is what Cheryl had presented to council if you were not there and didn't have the time to come as part of the TAC, and it's not required, but. So yeah, I would think we would wait on that one for just a net, maybe till the end of, ask to put on the agenda the second Tuesday in maybe April. That way we've already met for the April meeting and we have our data together. But that's just my personal opinion.
I think that makes sense. Anybody else? Public comment? No? All right. Should we do we need to do a motion to have that? Nope, we're good. Okay. All right. Thank you, Tracy. We are moving on to committee member comments.
Okay, I have a few things I want to give this. This is something the CBV did a great job. I'd like to see maybe Cheryl in the next 2 months put something together like this. These are 2 different packets and things that were done previously. They're very easy to do, and I think they're a 4-pager, and give it to this, put it in the record for the, I guess for you to have, to see if we can do that, because that's in your preview of work to do. When I read through the job description, that was something, and make it easy to do. Also, Santa Barbara, when I went through, I was given an email by Kathy Daneka-Jikes. Santa Barbara, the cruise ships are coming back, and I'd like to see how do we address the cruise ships, because they do come up here. So that is something I'd like to have on the next meeting, the cruise ships. And Shelby's visit SYV. How is Solvang going to work? We didn't get that question answered last month, and it still hasn't gotten answered. The midweek membership stay of the $100. It seems to be an interesting program. I pulled it up again and read through it. I'd like to know, I know you've met with him at different times, but what are we going to do to help work on that program?
So it's added to the hotels or where to stay page on our Solvang USA website, and some social media posts as well. I think an easy way to support, if the committee wants, is to actually put some boost money behind it on social media, to get a little bit more viewership, and would be an inexpensive way to do it.
Are you guys all familiar, we kind of had the discussion a little bit last week, or have you had a chance to look at the midweek promotion stay that the Hotel Association is doing with our community, and it affects 17 of our hotels? It has a come in, stay, and $100 gift card for it. So I don't know if you can send out the link. I have it right here. If you can send it out to everybody so they can have that opportunity to really look at it. I think it's something we should possibly look at paying for and doing some promotion and having that discussion. Next time, we're already kind of missing, but it's till,
But we could put some
okay?
grease behind it.
That would be just all I would like to see on that. And here I brought mine, because I try to keep up with those two. And then my third question is, are you going to visit California next week up to Sacramento? Are you personally going?
I am not, no.
Okay. Are we working with Shelby to have representation then
I believe they're
there?
attending, so I'm sure we can ask if you can, share notes, which I feel like in our industry we're good at doing. So yeah,
Do we have some product to give to him or something like that?
I don't have anything.
Okay. That was all I had.
Anyone else?
Somebody?
Okay, quick comment,
I wanted to say something. So I went first. Do you want to go first?
no, go ahead.
No, you go first.
Kim, you have the floor, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right, well, okay. I did get an email from the company that does the data work as far as data tracking, which they also have the process where they can do a whole bunch of tracking with cell phones. So it could tell us who's staying for a day, who's staying for half a day, who's staying for the weekend, where did they come from, what ad they saw, blah, 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 blah. He would love to come and do a presentation. I do have a general outline of what they do, which is some great work, and some of their plans include social media tracking and all of that stuff included in the cost. So I would love for us to consider putting it on the agenda for them to just do a presentation and see what they bring, but this is the company that the Visit SYV uses. And we would be able to get all that data specific to Solvang.
Can I get those back?
Oh. You need copies of those, right?
Yeah, the public has to have it at the same time, so I have to.
Oh, at the same, sorry.
Yeah.
That's it. I just made the same copy of
Okay.
the same thing.
Thank you. I'll
Yeah.
put these emails tomorrow.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. If it's distributed to the majority of the members,
Uh-huh.
then the public has to have it at the same time. And they can't get it at the same time because I have to upload. So you all
Oh.
get it at the same time.
Thank you, Anna Marie. My apologies. So is that something that you all would be interested in having them come in, or he could do a remote presentation?
Makes sense to me.
So will we do a vote, or?
You just
no?
give staff direction to place it on a future agenda. Would
Okay.
you like it to come back at the next meeting, assuming that consultant is available?
Yes, please, and I can give you, maybe not right now, but the email from him for the contact information. Nope, not gonna do it. Okay, got it. Next meeting, Cheryl. Good, we're good, okay. All right, Kim?
Okay. So, we were supposed to be this advisory committee for council to help with tourism. And already we've lost Abby, okay, so we're now 2 clicks behind. We're all asking things of Cheryl, okay? You're showing off things that we need to do, that we need to take care of, and I appreciate all this. But as I'm always going to be, I am a person who is devout about making sure we address tourism in this committee. And every one of you are experts at something that helps out to get us to that point. And if we don't move forward and give Cheryl some time, and because she's already being handcuffed, because every time we talk, bring something to her, she has to wait another week to go before the council to bring that up. Maybe it's not even brought up, or it has to come back to us. Do you see how long this is taking as we're going through these things? It's taking time, okay? Morro Bay, Paso Robles, Monterey, they're all moving along, okay? We've already gotten rid of Abby, so we're already behind, okay? So what I'm asking for all of us is just to think, we need to move forward, okay? And I wanna move forward, I wanna address issues that were done in the past, I wanna fix them and address them and move on. Because if we don't, we're gonna be behind the ball, and then we're not gonna get to any of our stuff that we need to do. We still have, people are asking about doing Legos. What are we gonna do? We can't even do Legos. I can't even think about that. We might not even be able to do this coming Christmas. So I don't know. I'm a little concerned right now. But that's what I'm here for. And we have to bring this, whatever we decide to do, we have to advise the city council about what's gonna do. And maybe they don't like it, and they bring it back to us, and we have to come up with another idea. So I'm asking all of you to just think about, we make a big difference here, and if we keep stalling here and not moving forward and peeling away the onion every time, we can address it. We can do this behind the scene. If you have an issue, go straight to her.
Right.
She has never said no to me. She'll never say no to anyone in this room. Go to her straight. Show her what you have, deal with it there, talk to her individually, and it'll be taken care of.
Right.
And that's what I think will help us move forward. Otherwise, we're not gonna go anywhere.
Right. And Kim, I'd like to chime in on that. You know, I've looked at Cheryl's background. She first came on the TAC. She's perfectly capable. She is extremely well-versed in the marketing profession, particularly the Southern California market. We just need to give her the tools that she needs to do her job. And that's the recommendations what we need to make to the city council, that we need to give her the tools that she needs. She's perfectly capable.
And I'd like to make a comment. As far as thinking that we're behind the curve or that we just need to move forward, I would say, and I would say again and again, that when you don't set a foundation in place, just like when you build a house and you haven't done your due diligence and your foundation is not steady and the soil is not ready for that kind of home, what is going to end up happening is a disaster in due time. And this is the second time that a contract has not been adhered to for a considerable amount of money. So to just move forward, to just get it done, when you're talking about a $600,000 contract, and before that, a very lucrative contract in which a whole bunch of things were not being done for both ends, I think that was because it was just being moved forward. So with my position on this, and this is where I stand with anything, I don't move unless it's ready to move. And right now, where I'm looking at it, where's your overall marketing plan? Where's your baseline? Where's your method of being able to determine whether or not marketing efforts are effective? You could throw money out there and do whatever, and that's what Abby was doing. And where do we stand right now? We stand where they charged us almost $10,000 for a 2-day trip. We stand where they weren't doing their social media marketing that they were contracted to do, and we paid for it. We stand where their content creation shoot that was supposed to be done last August for assets was never done. And as it stands, we have no photo assets from them. We stand where their website audit was never implemented. We stand where we no longer have the landing page. Our website is where we started. Our Facebook is where we started. Everything is where we started, and we're $200,000 down. So this wanting to just speed forward, I am wholeheartedly a supporter of someone being able to do their job. However, I will not personally stand by and stand quiet to see another train wreck. So if that means we take a little bit of time to ensure it's a solid foundation, then that's what I'm personally going to do, at least for me on this committee. That's where I stand.
Okay, I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not saying that those are things don't get addressed. I'm saying they will get addressed and they should get addressed, okay? But while those things are getting addressed, are we gonna sit and watch and wait for it to happen? Are we going to move forward and take care of business that we're supposed to be here for? If we're an oversight committee, name us and call us an oversight committee. We're not an oversight committee. We are a tourist. Hold on, let me finish, okay?
Excuse me.
So,
Excuse me.
TAC
Please don't
is
speak to me in that manner.
TAC is the Tourist Advisory Committee, and that's what we do. Okay, we're not an oversight committee. If we start going down the oversight committee road, then that's what we should be, but we're not. And we're gonna get something to have that happen. So let's focus on the tourism and let litigation be taken care of where litigation. I'm not an expert in litigation. If you are, be it. But if none of us are in this, we're a tourist committee. That's what we address. Leave the litigation to somebody else. That's all we can do is advise them. We can't even tell them what to do, we advise them.
And sir, I would beg you to look at the rules, duties, and responsibilities. And exactly what we're doing is what we're supposed to be doing. Because one of the things is monitor and evaluate effectiveness in marketing and tourism programs. And you can't do that if you don't have anything in place to monitor and evaluate effectiveness. And that is what I'm trying to bring to the table here. That is literally number 6 of our duties and responsibilities. I have a copy for you right here if you like it.
I've seen it.
I read over every contract, I looked over every duty and responsibility, and that is what I'm abiding by to the letter. So we'll agree to disagree.
All done.
Tracy?
On item, going back to 4C that Cheryl gave to the city, she did, I went back through, and I don't think because of time, because we did the Brown Act first, and that did take a lot of time for us, and I think everyone's antsy to get out of here. Cheryl asked us alternative contracts to look at, and these were ones that, if you were on the TAC before, they were sent to us in the packet, was the Verdi and the TJA, I don't have my glasses. I would ask that they go back on the agenda for next week. You've already also have in this email, we all received it, and it was part of today's packet of item 4C of meeting with Anna Ferguson, and I think that is something that I make a recommendation that we move forward on and not try to, they did a very good job for us, and what Kim is saying, and I'm listening exactly what Kim is saying, we need to do something. They were very good at it. Let them do it right now and move forward, and we can look at all these other, and if you have more to bring up, but if we don't do something right now on this, what you're saying, and you've obviously reached out to Ms. Ferguson, and she's reached out to this other agency, I think that might be where we're at right now, and we did not get this because of a time constraint today. These 2 items, or 3, I mean, there were 3 of them, and I only could find 2 of my 3. To put on the agenda, and I think that's what Kim is saying. It's time to move on. We already have the RFP out there. If more people want to do it, put it out there and go back at the ones that we've looked at. Is that what I'm kind of hearing
Yes.
from you?
Yes.
So I went ahead and pulled, because I had been previously on the TAC, there were 2 of them that, out of the 3 I could find, there are 3 that we recommended. I say we put them on.
I'm gonna have to answer. I think what he's saying is that this directive, or go ahead, Dave.
Well, as I mentioned during the Brown Act presentation, you're limited to what's on the agenda with limited
It's
exceptions.
on-
And giving staff direction to put something on is appropriate, but this is getting to a substantive discussion of the issue as to going back on it. So I just, when we get to the committee member comments, it's intended to be a brief section for committee members to ask to have something put on the agenda, and it's as simple as, I think this should go on the agenda. Do I have support from the rest of the committee to put this on the agenda? But it's not intended to be used as an opportunity to either go back into the agenda on items that have been discussed already, or to bring up new items without agendizing. It's really meant to be more just simple comments on it. I don't want to cut off any discussion. I think it's important discussion, but there are procedures that we have to do for Brown Act so that if there is action taken, that is not overturned.
I don't think, I guess I'm not seeing any Brown Act. This is exactly what was in our agenda packet. You know, and all of these were in the agenda packet, and they were given to us.
The point I was trying to make is that was earlier in the meeting. We're at an agenda item that's council member comments, which if the committee wants to go and return to one of the agenda items, it certainly can do that. I'm not forestalling that. I'm just pointing out that the provision on the agenda for committee member comments is intended to be more of a general and brief thing rather than going back into the agenda items.
Okay, quick, would you guys consider us having this special meeting in 2 weeks rather than coming back in a month's time? Cheryl can do what she does as far as wanting to speak with these companies about, and you guys would be able to give thoughts on what their proposals are, and that way that wouldn't put you a month's out, time out.
Yeah, fine meeting more frequently.
Yeah,
We've got
because then,
a lot
yeah.
of ground to cover.
right, is that,
Yes.
okay?
Yes, sir.
Can we put, so,
That's
what
good.
would we do to have that meeting in 2
You
weeks?
can direct staff to try to arrange a special meeting of the TAC within a 2-week time period. Because there are other bodies that meet in this room and varying schedules among the board members or the committee members, just direct staff to try to arrange a special meeting at a time that's convenient for all the committee members, or at least the majority of the committee members.
Okay, staff, would you please arrange that? Thank you.
And I think what Tracy was saying is to include an agenda item related to the previous.
Right, the interim, to be able to let them do what they need to do right now while we're figuring out the bigger picture.
Well, it's the
Or
other
helping you to
agenda
figure
item as
that out.
well.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I
You
think
want that right there?
I think 4C had a lot of things in it that were in our packet that didn't quite get covered, to the level they should have, and that's, I guess, what I'm saying.
Would you like that to come back,
I
in 2
would-
weeks?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that's what we're all asking. We need to, I'm listening to what Kim said, we need to act urgently and quickly, and we need to, it was in the packet, and we needed a quick dive in it and let her do her job. I have her job description, and that's part of the job. Let her do her job and let it do it right. And not, hold people's hands. And I think, as we said, maybe some of this was done wrong. We had a marketing company, this set up, we hired a marketing company, then we hired Cheryl. It kind of went backwards. We need to circle back the right way, and I think, look at, her job description and what she is really supposed to be doing, and what we have to be doing as a group. And as he says, we're advisory correctly to the tourism to get people here in town, and that's what I want, and that's what I went through. And boats bring people, buses bring people, and hotels, we want the hotels filled with the right organization to get us there.
So to clarify, it sounds like the special meeting will have the proposals from the 3 other agencies that were interviewed for discussion. Is that accurate?
Yes.
City staff comments?
No.
Cheryl, could we meet any earlier than 3:30? It's just getting out of here at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night is, I don't know why we've got to.
Well, if we're meeting more frequently, if we're meeting more frequently than a month's time, it should be much quicker, and we won't have the training either. And this one is in high school.
The training took up a lot of time.
Well,
I mean, we've been meeting once a month, so then we have to go over a lot. But if we're meeting in 2 weeks' time, then Cheryl will already know, and we could just,
okay.
because he has school, and my little one has school too, so she gets out at 2:45. Sorry, John, we're not, all right.
All I'd say is, for the special meeting, if you guys wanted to schedule it earlier, I'm not sure if I'll be able to make it anyway, because I have a class camping trip coming up in that time frame. So, you guys, if you want to have it earlier, I probably won't be able to make it regardless.
We'll see for you, John, I can get a babysitter.
Maybe 7.
Okay. Okay. Meeting adjourned, okay.